This video is brought to you by MyScript. You know, I'm not one to rant. I'm here to talk to you about products that positively impact my life. And for the most part, obviously, they are Apple products. That's sort of my specialty. That's always been my preference. Not to say I'm an Apple fanboy, but Apple products have always spoken to me, and I've always found them incredibly useful and intuitive. I use an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac on a daily basis. So of course, a day like today, WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, where they talk about the future of these devices and how software makes them better. Of course, that would be an important day for me and an important day for this channel. And if I have any ounce of integrity in my body, of course I have to tell the truth. And the truth is, today's Worldwide Developers Conference of 2021 was not what I expected it to be. In fact, I found it incredibly disappointing. And that's not to say that Apple didn't have some cool releases. I love a lot of the new iOS 15 and iPadOS 15 features, specifically, screen sharing and some of the FaceTime features, also the new multitasking features within iPadOS, and also Quick Note. Very cool stuff that I want to demo, of course, here once I get my hands on the developer betas and the public beta. But my issue with today is Apple, I think it's fair to say, completely neglected the iPad. And I'm going to play devil's advocate for a couple seconds here and say Apple was right to implement the M1 into this iPad because, after all, M1 is sort of the successor to the A12Z. It is related to it for sure, and some have likened it to the A14X. We anticipated there would be an A14X in this device, but the M1 is kind of like that, because it is an enhanced A-series processor, just technically, I guess. So I figured that Apple wanted to put more headroom into their iPads, and it makes sense. They want developers to create bigger and better apps for iPadOS. We saw that with some games that rolled out. We saw that with new capabilities within LumaFusion. But the issue is, if you make a statement like that and you implement hardware into a device that powerful, because as I've told you, and I'm sure as many of you know, the M1 is incredibly capable. It drives my entire 4K workflow, Photoshop, Lightroom, Final Cut. Not easy stuff, although not the most intensive stuff of all time, but my workflow is 99%, not what other people are doing with their computers, right? Most people just do web surfing, basic stuff. So I'm actually making use of the M1 and I know what it is capable of. And the fact that the same hardware is in here, this 12.9-inch iPad Pro to be specific, is kind of crazy. And I expected Apple to address that, the first party, rather than the third party, because third party is always expected to make things better. But I, at the very least, expected some tweaks that would make a clear use of the M1. But no, we just got some multitasking features. We got some note-taking features, which are great. But that doesn't really speak to the immense power that Apple brought to this machine. Same thing with the screen as well. The Liquid Retina XDR display, they call it. And for the people who got hyped up about this device and bought it with their hard-earned money, and the return policy ended last Friday if you pre-ordered it, when they found out today that their iPad is still very much as capable as it was before, I think some people are going to be upset. I'm a little bit upset because I thought that iPad could be a lot more, and maybe it will be in the future with third-party software. But you'd think that the company that puts this much power into a device would actually try to do something with it, and it just does not seem like that. And that is immensely disappointing for me as an iPad user, for you as an iPad user, and I'm not gonna lie, for the content of this channel, I hate to say it, but I am very much reliant on what Apple comes out with. I, as a sort of Apple-oriented channel, kind of have no choice but to be, on the hype train. And although I try not to, make too many clickbaity videos or, get too obsessed with some, I guess, speculation, although people who do that are great. I'm not calling you out, Sam, John Prosser. They do great work, same with, I think, Everything Apple Pro and other people who deal with speculation content. That's not me, though. I like to cover software, I like to cover hardware, and I like to tell you what this can do. And like I said in my iPad Pro review, I don't know what this can do, and I thought that by today I would. But since we do not have Final Cut, since we do not have an enhanced user experience other than widgets, I don't know what this can do right now. I don't. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes with the future of iPad. But if there was any day that we'd see what was to come, it'd be today. And what Apple showed was not it. And I anticipate that COVID had something to do with it. Apple is the master of spending lots and lots of time, figuring out their software and all that. I get it, and I very much admire them for that. They take their time with everything that they come out with, and they meticulously test and test and test. But it seems like last year was the year for them to figure out what's happening with iPad Pro, or just software in general. And it seems like this is sort of a gap year. And that sucks because the iPad Pro with the M1 is such a capable device. I compared it to a Toyota Prius with a 6.2 liter Hemi. And it still is, honestly, even with iPadOS 15, because they did not state any clear, user identifiable optimizations that make the processor and the RAM more warranted. And real quick, before I continue with what I'm saying here, I want to briefly mention today's video sponsor, MyScript, and their iPad note-taking app called Nebo. The interface is super clean and intuitive, but the features available are just incredible. Beyond typical handwriting, the Apple Pencil is given a high level of functionality. You can scribble text to delete, box in text to highlight, and even draw checkboxes, all which can be converted to text with a simple double tap. The keyboard and pencil can be used together as well. If you want to bold type text, for example, you can just simply underline it. Alongside these excellent in-text functions, you can export multiple pages at once as one file, as well as back everything up to a cloud service of your choice. You can also use the companion Nebo Viewer app on your iPhone to read through, search, and share your content on the go. I'll leave a link in the video description if you're interested. So that is what I have to say for today. Obviously, I don't want to be a total pessimist, and I plan on posting content consistently. But I do have to be more careful about what I talk about, I guess, because I don't want to run out of ideas. I had sort of anticipated we'd have a bit of a revival, if you will, in terms of iPad or interest in iPad, because iPadOS 13 did that. And I hate to say it in terms of, my channel's not going to do well because, of this. It's true, though, or it does have repercussions. But at the same time, though, it has an equal impact on iPad users, or at least people who spent their hard-earned money on a device like this, You might as well have just bought an iPad Air. The A14 is very, capable as it is. And that's not to say there aren't reasons to buy a new iPad Pro, but there are less reasons now because, it's still an iPad. It's still as capable as it was before. And I had anticipated a sort of update to sort of rectify it, just like there was one with iPadOS 13, with the iPad Pro 2018. iOS 12 wasn't cutting it. And then Apple said, hey, guess what? Here's a pretty different operating system to take advantage of that hardware. And so it happened. But this year, that did not happen. So I don't want to give up all hope yet. And of course, I plan to continue covering this and comparing it to other Apple devices. And of course, there are new Apple devices to come. But I'm sure you can understand why I'm a little concerned for my viewers who I may have encouraged to buy this device, or people who just bought it outright as it is, and also for content ideas on this channel. I was really excited to possibly cover Final Cut Pro on the iPad because I'm a big Final Cut Pro user, and that did not happen. And someone told me that it wasn't going to happen. I didn't believe them, and now I believe them. They're like, why should we get it? That might be a Mac only feature. And we did see how iPad Pro could interact with the Mac through that, dragging the cursor over, and that's great. But the iPad isn't a Mac accessory. It is a very powerful, capable device, a very versatile form factor, and it deserves so much more. And maybe that is in store, and maybe they couldn't get to it because the teams at Apple were impacted by the pandemic last year. But, you'd think that if Apple made a big statement, it wasn't a quiet thing. They're like, we put M1 in here. That says, well, there are big things coming for iPad. And if the answer is, oh, well, here's some new features and we can't wait to see what developers do, if that's the answer, that's a bit disappointing, So that's my take. This is not like a fun video to make, I guess. I want to be more positive because I love Apple products. I love the company. And obviously I'm not sponsored by them, or they're not paying me to say anything that I do, but Apple products mean a lot to me. I use them for everything from, writing, school, and my creative vision. And the iPad, I think, is a special device for me to this channel. And I think that it is so much more capable than Apple even sees it. And again, maybe there's something behind closed doors that's happening that we don't know about. But in the meantime, yeah, it's a bit disappointing. So I will talk more about this in future videos. Of course, I have more to talk about with regard to iPad Pro and of course Mac and MacBook Pro. Hopefully they come out with a new one pretty soon. I know some of us expected that today, but it makes sense why they didn't do it. They might have a separate event for that or a press release. But yeah, in terms of software though, like I said, although there are cool features, and I am excited to get my hands on the developer beta of the iPadOS or of iPadOS 15 and iOS 15, I expected a lot more. And if anybody in Cupertino is watching this, I say this all as constructive criticism. Show some love to the iPad. You did so by implementing M1, but you have to make it work better. And if you're going to charge people, more than what you would pay for a MacBook Pro, especially if you factor in getting a keyboard. Think about Final Cut Pro. Think about how this device could act more like a Mac. It has Mac hardware. It doesn't have to be exactly a Mac, but it can be closer to that. And maybe there's an end-all be-all Mac/iPad hybrid device. But yeah, if you're going to implement crazy hardware in here, albeit, this device is probably not going to be refreshed for another year and a half, back it up with some great first-party software and inspire third-party developers to do similar things. So that is my take. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll leave a link to Nebo in the video description. It's an amazing note-taking app. I plan on using more myself. Also, for my viewers, I took down today's video that I posted, my day in the life with the M1 iMac. It died. It literally died, and I'm not blaming anybody. It just was a bad morning to post that. So I'm going to be reposting that video over the weekend. I really hope you watch it. I had a lot of fun shooting it. It sort of compares the baseline and the mid-tier / spec'd out iMacs. So if you have any interest in that device, and it's a great device, by the way, but it is, a nuanced issue or at least a nuanced topic, I would really appreciate if you rewatch that or just watch it in general if you didn't see it already. I'll post that probably on Saturday or Friday or something like that. And yeah, stay tuned for more content. I'm trying to keep my head up. Obviously, this wasn't exciting news for me in this channel and also for iPad users, but I'm here to create, more creative content. I'm going to push myself to, be more creative, come up with different ideas rather than the typical, content that I do. And also, too, I will say this, I'm in no trouble right now in terms of finances and keeping the lights on, but eventually I might try to, set up some sort of Patreon or something, which gives me peace of mind in terms of just continuing to make quality content for you at least once a week. My goal is to just, keep this operation going, and I guess today sort of told me that, I cannot always rely on Apple hype. And, there are other things I should be doing with, my creative capabilities. So, but at the very least, I want to continue doing this channel. I want to provide content to you, and I really appreciate you guys and the community that we've created here. So I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.